pizza brand in I think in the Midwest that has a actual robot delivering your pizza now. That's who you're gonna surrender to, like a little robot. You know, robots can roll up.
Oh,
Gonna have
delivery
30
robots.
cal on it. Yeah.
Like cashiers.
I'm sure they have.
Oh, would you like your order 9mm or half inch?
Where do you need us, sir?
Would you like a happy
You know,
meal?
so I'm sure that you know they're going to be surrendering to a wide variety.
On my way to coordinates. Out.
Next 5 years. They're not going to be rolling people in there. It's too expensive. Too much health care. They're going to be rolling just a robot in there. It's going to just spray away. If the robot gets killed, they just bang another one out.
Waiting new orders, sir.
The more you bang out, the cheaper it is.
Well, that was one of the things that was tested in Azerbaijan-Armenia war. They had a whole logistic plan for replacement for drones.
Is that right?
Yeah, like
Armenia
and Azerbaijan.
Who was supplying them? Were we?
Brace yourself. We're flying in.
Turkish.
Actually,
The Russians and the Turks.
And, the Azerbaijanis, they actually had a whole like assortment of equipment. Like some of the earlier stuff they got supplied 10 years ago was from Israel. The cameras for the drones that they started using later on with that was supplied by Turkey is Canadian cameras.
Wow.
There was a little bit of a stint here in Canada when that was announced. Like what? The last time Canada.
Well, I really dislike the Turks to begin with. They're very. I don't think they should be in NATO anymore for some of the politics they do.
They basically shot their.
Well, what about what about Hungary? Like, should we get rid of them too?
Sky is ours.
I don't know if they're in NATO.
We have no command.
They're not NATO, but I think it's either Hungary or Romania. That
Well, when
United Kingdom is
what I'm talking about specifically is the fact that the Turks are supplying people who ethnically cleanse. The Hungarians don't do that. They may be.
Turks do that for centuries.
Listen, I think it's terrible and I think it's horrible, but if it's
Get there as
not
fast as we can.
United States
At your service, sir.
military complex issue, they're not really going to care.
Waiting new orders.
Well,
if it's not a United States security concern,
I'm not at liberty to discuss my previous assignments with you, sir.
For a short time, there actually was a security issue with Turkey
Oh,
back when
Okay,
America
well,
was
I guess I'm gonna have to
pretty
send
much.
my fucking command.
So, back when the whole F-35 deal was still being on the table with Turkey, all of a sudden they wanted to buy the surface-to-air missiles from Russia.
S-200, right? S-200, S-300?
Tail rotor check.
One number, I think 400 or 500. something
Yeah, they
like
wanted
that.
about the Russian.
Yeah. And that's what sort of tipped the scales for a lot of people. And this was like after the whole actually a whole bunch of mounting things. Part of it is like friction with Erdogan and other Europeans and American administration. So that thing with Russia kind of gave people that didn't like Turkey or wanted to pull them out of the deal. That gave them the clause to just say, we're not going to give that to you. We're going to give the F-35s to Greece. That's what they decided to give those F-35s to.
Didn't they give some to UAE or
Changing position.
was that weapons deal they had on Trump in the Middle East? Was it?
That was a separate thing. I think maybe they got pushed closer to the top in terms of like orders because Turkey's no longer there. But I had heard that the F-35s that were meant to Turkey, those ones got slated to Greece.
I'm pretty sure, as shown as a pro-Israel political policy move, that the United States were looking at one other country that I don't know, they would recognize some political nod,
Has an enemy chopper been spotted?
and then they were allowed to get.
Someone called for a cab?
I'm not sure if it was the
Are you
F-35.
talking to me?
I think I don't know.
It might be.
I don't know if a lot of from what I've heard about the F-35s.
It's a $2 billion paperweight. It's a piece of fucking shit.
It sounds like this is a problem. I'm not going to say that it's horrible. I'm not going to say it's useless.
No,
I'm not gonna
it's
say it's not worth
it's garbage. The only thing that's good on it is the modern stealth system on it. Everything else is a nightmare. It's the next Widowmaker.
So the trick with the F-35 is this was a joint strike initiative that was developed in the early 2000s. And part of the deal is that this was a multiple arms military. And when you have an A2 general trained mission,
You end up with a master.
it's a master of none, but because of the new standards for these days, like stealth, data link, control, it's less of like a dedicated dogfighter and much more capable in the sense that it can be an AWACS. It can share information. It can do much more of the larger strategic sense of sharing information or choosing where you want to attack. When you have stealth, you have the initiative to choose to engage, disengage, or go around and attack someone in the back. So, in terms of what it is, I have more of a problem with it of what it's trying to replace than the aircraft itself. Because let's put it this way: there's nothing else out there. Like, there's a couple other countries that are trying to work on their own projects, but it's not equal. There was some talks earlier about, like, say, phasing out the A-10 Warthog, a ground attack aircraft, the F-15, the F-16, all these things that it's supposed to replace. And then once the money starts ballooning, and
Guys, why we are losing?
because it shouldn't be losing. So, like, there's been initiative last couple of years to actually restart the factories for the F-15. Part of this initiative was the Saudi Arabia had requested of the United States a new F-15 model, F-15SA, Saudi Arabia. This one literally had all the bells and whistles that people have been dreaming up for the F-15 since the 90s. It's got stealth, it's got internal bits, it has a stealth running, it has a whole bunch of things that makes it it's not fifth generation or whatever the hell people call it, but it allows it to be like a modern fighter. And for a situation where
like 4.5 generation or
4.5, 4++, I hear 4++ a lot these days. So it has all the modern avionics, missiles, and
it's got to be. I mean, when you think about all the avenues of technological improvement, from robotics to medical to this to that, whatever, it's got to be in weapon systems. I mean, it has to be. Airborne product. Waiting new orders, the weapon systems. I'm just a little surprised that it's like this is like 1980s technology at this point.
Waiting for your orders, sir.
It's even earlier. So there is a couple things about it. While all these modern pieces of equipment, stealth, missiles, internal bays, and everything, it's still not as capable in terms of stealth as a dedicated platform as the F-35. But one of the things that the F-35 loses by being jet trained is aerodynamics, the turning capacity, or even top speed. So
it sounds like they're worse in a dogfight.
Take my word. You don't want to know how.
Yes, at the same time, dogfights are happening less and less. Part of the deal is that missiles are available.
Missiles are much longer range now.
But also, you can have other aircraft that can actually go forward and circle around targets. there's
Yeah,
actually
you know.
there's actually a bit of a study about that. So the usual terminology people hear about is UAV, which means unmanned aerial vehicle. There's also systems called unmanned ground vehicles, which is just UGV.
Yeah, right.
So one of the things that Russia was experimenting when they went into Syria to help out the Assad government is they started sending in their own ground testing, marketing, experience, so forth. And
What
these things,
electronic units.
yeah,
That wasn't like, brought up, you know, just from a I don't say advertising, but from a marketing. Oh, look at what the Russians have. They have robots with guns now.
yeah, part of it is having what amounts to a wireless platform with wheels and a gun on top. Like I can bet you a lot of money that lots of Americans have been trying to do that in their own backyard. Like I've seen some people where they have like an RC helicopter, they attach a shotgun underneath, stuff like that. But what the Russians were working on is trying to actually use battlefield experience. What they found is that when they sent it did work, but there were problems when they started sticking it into urban areas where there was a lot of skyscrapers, a lot of buildings. So what they thought they could have, like say, like 10 kilometers range on this thing, it goes down to like kilometer and a half, even shorter. So you can't really have a drone that goes too far from the controller in an urban setting.
Yeah, sure, makes sense.
And when you have a drone that goes in the sky, there's no buildings around. You have direct
Over
access
like
to
a radio, when it's over a radio.
Yes.
Some sort of short wave, or even Wi-Fi that gets sent back to some sort of good, centralizer, and then it gets sent to the global network they have. It takes time for the packets to get there.
Yeah, it depends on like some systems they were trying to test out, see if they can actually control strictly from Moscow. Other people, other Russians, they probably were like down the street, just making sure there was no technical problems, and they actually had like eyeballs on what the hell was happening. Like, it would kind of suck if you had like a $5 million prototype project and you had a couple of rebels just climb on and throw Molotovs on top of it. That's not great. So like, it's the introduction of new design philosophies and working together. Like the Americans are working very hard on trying to use these small UGV platforms and trying to put them together. I've seen some videos where Americans would try to work with a UGV that has a half-inch machine gun on top, but it's not like an automated turret. It's literally a guy that will actually like keep tabs on the machine, will actually use the machine gun when like a commander asks him to. The vehicle will drive based on somebody with like a controller, like radio control analog stick type of thing. Try and find a video on it. It's not
to keep that one guy motivated that long though.
What are your orders, sir?
Well, he's basically strapped to the thing. Like,
well, yeah, I know he's strapped to the thing, but he's, after a couple of weeks, he's gonna be like, "Fuck this shit," and they all of a sudden they see an enemy and they wake them up. They're like, "Hey, dude, start shooting!" And they start shooting.
So like,
basically what you're saying, you have some sort of device that was manned but controlled by
Ready to go.
some sort of machine language or networking function.
well, the goal is that these things would be automated, but there is, at least in the Western circles, much larger initiative on keeping the man-in-the-loop system.
Yeah.
A lot of people in the West...
Two reasons to do that, right? One is to keep people employed, which Western countries are going to have to do. They're going to have to find a way to keep everybody doing something.
That you're about to put our lives at risk?
Maybe they have,
As an enemy chopper been spotted.
maybe they'll turn it around and be like, we'll be like 3x of the military because we want to hire that sort of thing would happen. But on the other side of the coin is like, look at how many people you have that could be employed by the military. And even if they're...
What are your orders, sir?
I completely understand that idea of it. Like, if you've seen the Matrix, they have one like a cartoonized movie where they actually show like a prequel to the Matrix series where people started getting lazy and all the industry was basically run by robots. So that kind of thing it's very far off. Like nobody's honestly thinking like that. People just want to have like a reliable system, and the idea is that if things break, what are you going to do? You're not going to travel all the way from Washington to Moscow to go to someplace. You'll have some people that are around at the same time. Like the old doctrine of combined arms. Like, never send tanks out by themselves. Never send infantry by themselves. Don't send corpses out by themselves. You gotta have them be able to work together. And even though there are more on unmanned systems being put out there, there's still a large emphasis of like still keeping people on in terms of whereas before you have a manned ship of like a destroyer, cruiser, whatever it is, you would have automated systems that would be the backup to the human. But what people are looking for is the possibility where the machine becomes reliable enough that the human is the backup, and that allows the human to be freed up from some of the like menial jobs. And you have, say, a soldier will become a commander, and he will have a group of robots that will serve his needs. A pilot that may be just concentrating on dogfighting, suddenly he has loyal wingman systems that will work with him, and then he becomes a general. In terms of the employment part, I think it will be very interesting in terms of, say, a situation in Myanmar that kicks up and China gets interested, and that freaks people up. You'll have reorganizations of militaries where you'll have a sudden push for orders of missiles, drones. Drones right now have the possibility of both being a suicide system and also reconnaissance. So there's a large mix in terms of what.
Plus, they also have the possibility of being low. What's the word? Political expenditure.
It'd be.
You know what I mean? So like, if it's like, oh, well, we just sent a drone over there. We just sent a drone. Yeah, the drone got shot down and crashed, whatever. But we got the guys who said to get after.
Setting up a new AA.
Yes, that's
I
actually
think America would be very, very.
Yes, that's exactly the example. Like, I'll give two examples. Usually, running drones into another person's country or some type of reconnaissance vehicle has political like where if a pilot gets captured, like U-2 spy planes, where they have
Gary, what's his name? Gary.
Wilco, out.
But yeah, he got caught.
It's not that important.
U-2, and the Russians got him, and they grabbed him, and we had to say, yeah, there was spy planes. But at the other side of the coin, everybody knew he had spy planes.
It is, but the real kicker is that he's alive, he confessed, he is there. It's embarrassing, and that's just bad.
But on the other side of the coin, does the... Should be doing. Fuck the Russians. You know, to a certain extent, like you have to think about it from a more... On one hand, it's like, oh, on the other hand, it's like, look, we're doing everything we can to protect the United States from communist China and communist Russia. And when a guy gets caught once in a while, hey, you know what? You're not getting caught. This guy's getting caught, but still, he's American. He's doing the right thing. So to a certain extent, the fact that occurred in the state across that line, flying, you know,
Dude, what the fuck?
I'm sure
Somebody
that
just TK'd me.
What are your orders, sir?
I'm sure that most people would be like, yeah, well, that's what we want the United States to do. You know, it's like, yeah, the Russians. We have to. There's some Russians. They're okay with that. America, you know, in the 70s and 80s. And now it's America.
It's easier to digest. Like for most people that aren't looking too closely at who dies or what is the name Al-Shabaab or some other kebab or something. Not hate on them. Just
Yeah, no,
like
I
nobody really cares. A lot of people doesn't care. Let's say, for example, yesterday and the day before, there was a very big incident in the Hormuz Strait. Big oil traffic carrying tankers. The mainstream media doesn't care about it. It's a big incident between different countries, but mainstream media doesn't cover these types of things. Part of it is these mainstream organizations do not understand the implications or are trying to work an angle.
Right? So let's just say 2 tankers get tangled up and they delay oil by 20 or 30 days. That's gonna be a commerce issue, and I think that, you know, whether it be Fox or Bloomberg or any of the financial coverage, financial market coverage apparatus, they're gonna report on, hey, you know what? You know, this I don't know what I really don't know what they hold, but let's just say this $2 million crude oil delivery is not going to make it, and raise prices and blah blah blah.
Waiting for your orders, sir.
And that's something that affects a regular person, whether it's somebody that's just driving a truck, as an Uber driver, or works at McDonald's. That's something that...
But like petroleum, you know, to be fair though, petroleum prices affect a lot of people.
Oh, jeez, like McDonald's man is going to find out that the burger scene needs to flip late. The person above him is going to find out that
even
transportation costs are going to go up.
Even just from a very close to, like, you know, like an employee. All right, you have guys working out on oil rigs, but and then you have people that are working in the refineries, and believe it or not, this whole XL pipeline, that would have affected a lot of American oil industry jobs, because there are refineries in the Midwest that would get bypassed because of the XL pipeline.
Yeah, so I originally thought that if that pipeline was going to be canceled, it would come from the Canadian side for political reasons or something. For me, hearing that Biden actually did that is a big surprise. It was a big surprise in Canada. Like, there was... Yeah.
It seemed like most of the jobs were going to be Canadian in the long run. And, you know, over time, the amount of Americans that would be employed after the completion of construction was minimal. And they're primarily Canadian nationals.
It would be a lot of Canadian nationals, but I think the bigger part of it would be, while it would be manned by Canadians, this is a partnership between Canada and America, and I think it was... Shoot, I can't remember if the oil would get pumped from Alberta to Texas or vice versa.
Waiting for your orders, sir.
The oil would go from Alberta down to Texas in a
Air defense ready.
it would be very difficult to maintain the pipeline because of the amount of abrasiveness in the oil that would come from Canada, because it's oil sands.
Yeah, but here's what I also heard, or this is what I've understood, is that there is already oil coming from Canada to America, but it is being done through rail lines, which is still very dangerous. I've heard, like, in the last couple of years where, like, a spill would happen because car gets turned over.
Enzo, can you stop shooting Artie near my Patriot, please?
So, like...
So there's a pipeline that's currently in place.
I don't think that's mine, though.
that
Okay.
supplies a lot of Midwestern refineries that then create gasoline and other petroleum products out of what they receive in a refinery, and and then it goes on from there. So, to a certain extent, by sending this oil out
Anything you want.
through New Orleans, which is where I guess where it eventually ends up, is not beneficial to you.
Oh, okay, that's definitely mine. Okay, sorry.
The people that own the far end of the transmission of oil through the Kingston pipeline are mostly Saudis, or
Checklist completed. Ready to
Oh,
go.
the oil lobbies and the
because to a certain extent the oil similarities between Arabian crude and
Air defense ready.
Canada crude, what they're pumping out, which is mostly very
Checklist completed. Ready to
dirty.
it's
hard to
very dirty
refine.
in comparison. Like the sweet
Yeah.
oil that people talk about, say in Libya or Saudi Arabia, it is a much higher concentrate, but also
Even
easier to
Texas.
take out.
I mean, even Texas, they get so much more gasoline out of that oil than.
Yeah, like in terms of volume, you're definitely
Yeah.
getting more if you get from outside.
Ready to go.
So it's not like exactly the. So my understanding is that, and I'm not going to sit there and say all of the oil, because I know it's true that not all the oil goes that way, but a lot of the oil that hits the terminus of the Keystone XL pipeline, that is in like Port Arthur or something like that. They're owned by the Saudis. They're not owned by Americans. They're owned by Middle Eastern oil producers. There's a lot of the market that's owned by them. They have so much money and they invest it. So, whether or not they do good, I guess, like they're here in America, then it's certainly not bringing people over to work in America. Americans are getting some jobs, but there's certainly an influence mechanic involved.
Missile and firing position.
There is certainly extra interest with such a big money deal as this, but to me it seems kind of ludicrous in the sense of one of the main goals, or like at least the hopes of America in terms of an energy policy since the pipelines got turned off in the 70s, is to have energy independence. And independence not strictly in terms of like American companies, American, but as the North American continent would be able to survive on its own energy resources without having to go through political shenanigans from the outside.
Right.
So to have this deal called off, to me, it seems like it has only been delayed. This concern of energy in Canada and America, Mexico, and down South America is so big that it's bigger than any term decision.
Well, I think to a certain extent, decisions made locally where a lot of people that are in the Midwest that work at these refineries would be bypassed, and they would lose a significant amount of jobs. And the cost of gasoline would actually go up, because you have to transport it all the way down to Louisiana and then transport it back up. Whereas now they have refineries in the Midwest, and they also have gasoline production in the Midwest, which helps keep the price much lower. I mean, if you think of it, right? You look at California, you look at New York and Florida and Carolina and Washington, all on it.
They have to recognize this. But in terms of like the volume of the market, I do understand that with all these different factors and the reason why Canada, America are bringing these out here is that it's cheap.
It's cheap. For specific products, yes. It's cheap to buy all your oil sands and convert it into gas.
But in the last, I don't know, 3-4 months, the price of gas that I've been seeing as a Canada has gone up by at least a bit, maybe.
Yeah, no doubt. It has gone up.
So why is that? If, to my understanding, any deal, the Keystone Pipeline or some type of like revitalization with Saudi Arabia or I don't know, maybe some project in the oil deposits outside of Australia or something. Why is it that now the price of oil or price of gas is going up? Like I remember, like before the shenanigans the last 2 years, there was a whole thing inside where actually artificially depressing the value of oil so that it would affect Russia and Iran. But now that's changed, and now it's very expensive.
Gotta pay for it. They gotta pay for that.
Well, they were wrecking their own economy in the process. The purpose was to hurt other people's economy.
Come on. Why would they hurt themselves? They were doing something to get something. Right?
Well,
They were doing something to make America. Yeah, but when America wanted the price of gold really low for Russia,
well,
the Middle East went along with it, right?
I would say in this particular case, no. This is a decision that was made by the, I can't remember, the oil countries that are not reporting something else. OPEC, thank you very much. OPEC, they were, because Saudi Arabia is the one that controls the largest money. I think Venezuela is the second.
Very close. American acolyte.
I imagine like a lot of American companies would be interested in this plan because it's a lot of American companies that are working in Saudi Arabia. There may be Saudi Arabia, say, financing or ownership, but most of those companies are basically contributed from everywhere else. The actual decision to actually depress the value of oil and affecting the gas market all the way down to like $60 a barrel, which was like unheard of in my time, but something that was a lot more known about in my parents' generation. So at that time, main thing in the Middle East was the whole the revitalization of the Shia Sunni war and all that jazz that was going on. It was at least in their perspective with Saudi Arabia, more important to hurt Russia that was helping out in Syria, which was considered an enemy scenario, and hurting Iran as a legislation and at the time, there was no other ways of directly attacking the country. So they decided to go on an economic plan. But the problem at that time is that after the decision was made, there were a lot of problems in Saudi Arabia and a lot of other countries that were dependent on oil exports. That this was bad. So it was more like hoping to hurt somebody more than yourself, and then you start hurting each other equally. But because Saudi Arabia is making way more money off of oil than Iran or some of these places are, they're losing just as much or more.
Really?
Well, there were problems with this plan because, for one thing, while Saudi Arabia has a large stockpile of American money, a lot of other people's money, they were bleeding an exorbitant amount of money while trying to depress the value of oil, because basically the entire country's GDP is dependent on that. Venezuela also had a lot of problems with low oil prices. But this was a decision that it was good for a lot of people. A lot of consumers were very happy with this. America didn't really have a problem with this. It was more of a geopolitical concern if Saudi Arabia became stable. But in terms of, did America have a problem with low oil prices? I do not think so. I did not hear much or anything about it. Maybe speculations about things on the long term, economic plans, or whatever. But most, if not all of those concerns, just got thrown in the window for the last 1.5 years. These days, it's more about these days there's a lot more scares going on in, say, the farm industry. There's a lot more talk now, or at least more talks about, say, time to nuclear breakout to 1 month instead of, like, say, 2 years. A couple of years ago, people were talking in terms of years. Now people are talking in terms of weeks. The tone in the Middle East has changed very drastically. Part of it is, one example is Lebanon. Lebanon has been in dire straits since before COVID. And economically speaking, the Beirut explosion, but also little things like the financial minister trying to get a plan for bailing out and helping the people of Lebanon, and then after signing the deal, takes all that money and leaves the country. You have scenarios like this. Recently, there was a new leader that was inaugurated into Lebanon, and well, for people that are looking closely at the whole Israel border and Hezbollah, there was a very strange or different tone in how both ever since 2006, basically both countries have been staring at each other. But for Hezbollah, they're not part of Lebanon. They're financed by Iran as a militia in Lebanon. And because they're so big in Lebanon that it's really hard for all the other factions in Lebanon to start something. They don't want to go through another civil war. But because of the things that have been going on the border, there's some weird things going on. Like, one thing happened is rockets got fired by a militia group into Israel. Israel spawns. People freak out. Okay, that's like every other day. But Lebanon is supposed to be like a quiet border that anything happens, or if anyone sneezes, Hezbollah does. And it's not that big of a deal to say like the Iranian group of rebels that would share their frustrations out on Israel. The strange, different thing that happened this time is that Hezbollah actually announced that they had given the go-ahead for this rocket strike. The problem with that is that usually countries that want to attack another, they'll claim that a proxy did it, so that they have the ability to just, to politically and socially, whatever, say that it was us. They have now decided to say that that was us and we are attacking Israel. That is, well, I would say, not the wisest thing for Hezbollah to do with Lebanon, because Lebanon is unstable. Lebanon is in the middle of an economic crisis. People are leaving. Woods, one of the people in this community, all the things that go on, and it's way worse than what we hear outside in English translations.
Yeah.
The weird thing about this rocket strike is not only is this like a resumption in attacks on Israel from like the whole Hezbollah thing, is this rocket attack apparently comes from a Druze community. That's not Muslim, that's not Christian, that's not the usual. There's a lot of different factions.
I don't know what. You'll have to explain that.
DRUZE if you put it to Google. But basically, this is one of those ethnic groups that is sort of just not really considered anymore. Like, it's very easy to just say that in Middle East there are Jews and there are Muslims. That's it. In reality, it's a lot more complex. There's a lot.
Oh yeah, I know there's a whole lot more.
Yeah.
There's like Kurds, there's Armenians.
Like, or Alawite is like the northern Syria. That's the one that Assad's family comes from. So this Druze community, they're not part of whatever's going on between Israel and Iran or Hezbollah. So for them to do a rocket strike there, that's strange. So what apparently happened in that track is actually all the people and the local militia actually grabbed these people that started rocket attacks and basically threw them at the military and the government, because like, these guys need to be punished. They're basically getting innocents involved. That's no good. This type of thing would never happen before. The Hezbollah control over local civilians and people was a lot stronger, but that was when they were getting a lot more money from from Iran when the economy of Lebanon was not in shambles. So, at least from my critical thinking perspective, is that if nobody in Lebanon is fearful of Hezbollah, that's a big tool as part of this malicious group ability to run their half of the country out the window. If they do not fear them, there's a concern of civil war. And regardless of Israel's participation in this, that's bad and at the same time good. Nobody in, I don't know, 50 years since the whole Lebanon civil war started. None of those factions want to be fighting each other. They don't go through this one festival. But if that happens and Hezbollah gets kicked out, eliminated, killed, whatever, Hezbollah gets killed and knocked out of Lebanon, that means a very important ally or a wing of the Iranian arm is gone. The entire setup by the Shia faction for a long time was support from Iran to Syria and Lebanon, and that would create an entire network that would stretch all the way to the Mediterranean. If those start failing, those connections start failing, it's very bad for the Iranian government. So
if those cords start to break, because it's a web, it's not a direct connection, it's a web.
Yeah, it's for all intents and purposes, the web of evil, the Iranian axis.
No, it's not anything like that. It's just that's how the CIA considers things. It's like a web.
Like
if certain threads within the web start to break.
Actually, yeah, that's a very proper way of looking at it. I'm used to a different terminology for this. So, these types of things, you can go tankers that let anything on it in the hormone strings. That's like the tanker wars all over again with Iran and Iraq. Nobody likes it. If you have Lebanon, that goes even more into chaos. Nobody likes it. So, for some people, at least in the Iranian government, this looks like a really bad situation. In situations like this, you have people that think, hey, maybe it's time to do negotiations with them. Let's train your government. Well, that's probably not going to happen, at least with Iranian theocracy. The current president of Iran, who just got inaugurated a couple of weeks ago, he has some very he's known by the
anti-Semitic views.
No, not even that. He's actually known internationally as a butcher. So he's known as...
Oh, that's not good.
he's Revolutionary Guard enforcer. So, like, he was like the commissar, one of the big commissars of the Guard. He was the guy that was shooting the communists in the 80s, and he was the guy that was killing students during the Green Revolution. He's not a moderate whatsoever. So, and presidents are not really chosen by popularity in Iran. Usually it's the Brad Mufti decides on this person is who we need during this administration or something. It's by somebody that fits a certain status. But this guy is also considered revolutionary. He's considered the religion's next in line. He's the president and supposed to be next in line to be the religious chief. So
yeah, he's supposed to be the new Ayatollah.
Yeah, that's the word, Ayatollah. I get stuck on mullah. So we have a situation with a new government of Iran, usually not too different each time. After Ahmadinejad was one of the supposed to be the great speaker for attacking the United States and all this stuff. This guy, he blows him up. Now, we could say that simply just talking louder does not mean that they're actually going to do these things, but this guy has a reputation for killing people because, well...
Going through with it.
Revolutionary Guard needs of the Revolutionary Guard, whatever it is. I don't know why, but
Second.
so
All day left.
you're winning now.
We won by points.
Yay!
Ah,
So-
by
That was a
points.
brutal fight.
Oh, this was the best
we
match.
won
I'm
by
gonna go
points.
now. Thanks for the game.
Yeah,
Take
this
care.
was fucking
Enzo.
best.
That was a brutal
I agree.
fight. Holy shit, that was brutal.
Oof.
Also, is Fireman Kuma?
Do what?
Are you the same person?
No. We've literally talked in the same we've talked in the same Discord at the
It's
same
down to
time before. I don't. It'd be
Like,
wow.
I
Generic
think
white guy. That's
literally,
racist.
literally a week ago, Fireman yelled super loudly at Kuma, actually, which is kind of funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. Shut up, Kuma.